Some More Good News Season 2 is all about people doing good through following their passions, good for their own souls and for others. I'm Kate Cherichello, and welcome to today's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world. So this is Lily Kirchner. She is coming to me from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Wife to the wonderful Bryan, mom to Jim and Will, an advocate, an author, and now a nonprofit founder. And I want Lily for you to tell me about who you are and what you do in your own words.
Yes. So I am just a mom of two really active boys who are on the autism spectrum. Jim is more high level and Will is more on the severe side of autism. But I guess throughout the journey, since both of them have been diagnosed, I've noticed gaps in our healthcare and mainly just the way, services are able to be presented to individuals. So I wanted to be able to fill those gaps. So I decided to start a nonprofit organization to fill in those gaps and to hopefully get more people on the spectrum the services that they need. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you answered some of this, but I'd love to hear more about how, because you used to work in a career that was not related to autism, right? At all, or nonprofits, right? How
Right.
did you make that jump from going from there to, kind of like it was a 9 to 5 structure, right? To
Yep.
saying, I am going to follow this passion. I'm going to help my sons and others. How did you make that leap?
Well, actually, when I was in my 9 to 5, I mean, I loved my administrative role. But when I had James, I just decided to be a stay-at-home mom. So honestly, like I haven't, worked outside the home for almost 5 years now, I should say. But when I guess I've always been interested in this type of work, I guess. My mom and my dad have always been involved with people with disabilities, so I've been around, people with mental illness or intellectual disabilities, Alzheimer's, really anything, all my life. So I think it was easy for me to make the transition just because I've been around that a lot. And part of my schooling was in psychology too. I just couldn't decide what I wanted to major in because I went back and forth from music to psychology to criminal justice. So I had a little bit of background in that sort of thing. But as far as running a business, I had no prior knowledge to how to do that. And I really still don't. So it's just, it's a go fly by my seat of my pants, learn while I'm doing it kind of thing. So, hopefully it's working out. So.
Wow, I never knew that. I did not know that you did not have a business background in that regard about that. And wow, yes, learning on the go for sure. So you said that you have been working at home for multiple years now. So the next question, it sounds like you have been used to the home idea, but how has your world changed since COVID started? You can do that in detail or just in general. And what do you feel is going to stay the same, or what do you think is temporary? Kind of talking on that. And again, I know that you work from home now, but is that something that will continue?
Yeah, I think it changed a little bit. There was a little shift. I mean, obviously, my kids weren't in school yet prior to honestly last month. So, I mean, we didn't really have to go through that type of shift of them being in school and then not being in school, where we just kind of started them out virtually, and then started putting them in person last month. But they're only 4K and 3K, so it's really not, that wasn't really a huge shift. But I think the biggest thing for us when COVID started was the inability for our kids to have the services in person for a while. I mean, we really stopped all services for at least the first month. And then we weren't able to get in in-person, to like their occupational therapy and their speech therapy, which are very, very, very important therapies for them. So I guess, it was really kind of difficult to be, their therapist and their mother and everything all at once. And it was just not something that I really could do effectively. But we were grateful to have their ABA at least, and they still came in to the home after the first month. They were able to come back into the home and do some therapy. And so thankfully we were able to have that. But then we just it was nice in the summer. We didn't, have anywhere to go because we obviously couldn't go anywhere. So we did a lot of hiking, and the boys were able to see a lot of different sites around our area and stuff last year. So, I mean, I think those types of things COVID kind of made better because we hadn't really explored our area as much since we had lived here. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a shift with their services. And I think that's pretty common with a lot of special needs individuals and their parents, especially ones that are in school and that don't have services outside of school either. So they're not getting anything. But
sure. Going with that, then, talking about Light for Autism Corp, do you want to promote services through the organization? Is it focused on different aspect of autism? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So Light for Autism would be supporting any age on the spectrum. So I mean, like from 2 years old to, however old that, an individual is if they need services. So we would be funding services for them. So they would be getting the services outside of the organization. Let's say they needed occupational therapy, but they did not qualify under insurance or waiver or educational guidelines. We would be able to then grant those funds to them so they could have that service. Because not every person is able to have services under, let's say there's a child who's 6 years old that needs services, but is not, it does not qualify under those educational guidelines because they're different than a medical diagnosis. You also have to have an educational diagnosis. So that's where one of the big gaps are for me. If your child has a higher level of autism, it's less likely that they would be able to qualify educationally. And like I said, a lot of times kids that age would not have outside services. They rely on those school services. So we would be, like I say, we would be funding those services through the organization.
Gotcha. This whole thing is a focus on good news and how people are doing good for themselves, following their passions, and good for others along the way. So the obvious is you are creating a nonprofit, you are helping your sons and others, and that's amazing. So another question, just 2 more questions for you. One is, do you have stories or specific moments that have stood out to you through your time working with autism advocacy that you can share, where you have seen goodness happening, where you have seen a child really take a step, either your own or another one, or something of that regard?
Yeah. I haven't been doing the advocating for too long. But I can say our youngest, Will, like I said earlier, he's on the more severe side of autism. Um, when we first got him diagnosed, he was almost 2. Um, he was like, he literally almost turned 2. So he was, I think, like a year and 10 months or so. Um, but he was actually cognitively at a 6-month-old. So, he was literally like an infant in a 2-year-old body. So, at that point, thinking about where he would be, almost 2 years later, I did not think that he would have so much progress. So, early intervention is everything. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to begin the foundation as well, just because a lot of kids don't get that early intervention, and it's not as effective then when they're older. So, Will today is cognitively almost at a 4-year-old. He's just skyrocketed in cognition and everything. And he had not even said mama when we first got him diagnosed, but he is literally saying like full sentences now. And he has a long way to go too, but it is absolutely incredible how much progress he's made. So,
Wow.
he's a little warrior. So.
Wow. And that says so much about you and Bryan, though, too, about being aware of that early intervention and really just attacking it and helping. So, wow. Amazing.
They have an incredible medical team, and
good.
we were just able to get him in right away. And everybody was just always on top of everything. So we were very, very blessed that way.
Oh, incredible. So going with how you said, early intervention is so key, and you made that point, is there anything else, last question, that you have found that an important element that you find that people don't realize or they forget when you are interacting with them about autism and about, disability education and what's needed out there?
Yeah. I think autism, it's gaining a lot of awareness, especially within the last, 5 years or so. But there's so much awareness still needed. I think as a majority, people still don't really understand how autism really works. We still don't really understand how autism works specifically because it is so individual to every single person. There's literally not one autism that is the same. Our kids are completely on opposite sides of the spectrum, like I've said. And a lot of their comorbidities are the same. A lot of their other co-diagnoses are the same, but they affect them in completely different ways. So, and I think people who are older on, like on the spectrum and who are older have, like I said, did not have those early interventions because we didn't really know about it. Especially when I was a kid, and a lot of kids that had autism when I was a child, they didn't have those, not probably nearly as much as the services as they do now. So they didn't also have any transitional help either. So we're seeing a lot of gaps in the, transitioning into adulthood as well. And we still do. I know that there are some facilities now that are targeting the transitions, which is awesome. I know Eau Claire actually is just building one, which is our neighboring town. If y'all don't know where I'm talking about.
Way up there, it's really cold up there.
Yeah, it's very cold up here. it was 18 degrees today, and I was like, wow, there's a heat wave. So
I
that's
just
how
in
cold it is.
Wisconsin once, and I remember when it got to 2 degrees, it felt like it was a nice day after some of the days.
Yeah,
But
I'll never get used to it. I don't care if I've lived here all my life.
that's incredible, though. I didn't realize they were building those sorts of facilities now. That is huge from way back when. I know
Yes.
growing up in the theater, seeing kids with autism join the community theater and the incredible effect that had on them. That was amazing. But to know that they were few and far between who were getting that kind of interaction. So this is so wonderful to hear, and about what you've done with Jim and Will and what you've done with the nonprofit that's forming. Amazing. I need to give you a shout out though. This is Lily's book. I Am the Lucky Few. And it's on Amazon in paperback, hardback, and Kindle, right?
Paperback and Kindle.
Paperback and Kindle. Yes. Yep. And it is so sweet. And it was last year, right?
Yes.
Ever since COVID started, like, was it yesterday or was it 2 years ago?
I know, I feel you. I could not believe, the only reason why I know that is because I had in memory on my Facebook the other day, and I said it was a year ago. I was like, wow, really? It's been a year.
It's already been a year. Wow. Well, highly suggest checking it out. And especially for people who aren't as familiar with people with autism, it's such a beautiful book. And thank you. Thank you for being here and spreading this goodness.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Hey, is there anything else that you just wanted to say, that you wanted to plug or follow or anything like that?
Yeah. We are actually having a virtual 5K on April 2nd through the 3rd. So because it's virtual, anybody obviously can register. So we just go on to our website, www.lifeforautism.com, and click that event section, and it'll say virtual 5K, and you can register right there. So
nice. And I'll put that link in the notes attached to this too. Wonderful. All right, we'll be signing up for that, and it'll be spring.
Yes, I know. I'm like, oh, let's pray for good weather, because otherwise I'll be doing it in my house.
Just running in place.
Goodness.
Well, thank you so much, Lily.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much for listening. Follow me, Kate Cherichello, at positively_Kate on Instagram for more. If you have good news that needs to be shared, please send me a message.